external world. So all that is exposed by virtue of that interconnect has to be protected, and that's one very, very big opportunity which has been into existence for almost now 2.5 decades. That is almost 25, 26 years. Then the second task is that whenever these applications or servers are co-hosted in the data center, which as Abhijit has told and I have also discussed, is now evolving to the hybrid data center, which extends even up to the cloud abstractions. I would request all of you to mute yourself because some of you have not muted and it's creating a disturbance. Thank you very much. So that lateral coexistence of multiple assets of applications and servers give a possibility or creates a surface for an attack to propagate from one machine to another machine, or one server to another server, or one application inside the server to another application inside the other server or the same server. And so many possibilities exist for that lateral movement of the attack. And that lateral movement of that attack has been further proliferated because now we do not seem to have physical servers separated together for different applications. Virtually now the servers coexist on a similar or a single hardware compute grid, as we have been discussing in the past sessions. So this has actually, this proliferation has led to extensive east-west traffic, the traffic which moves within the zone, within the segment. And that east-west traffic expects the cybersecurity, and that's where the extensive opportunity exists today called as east-west security. Also, there is another abstraction that I have told you, that on the mobility and the cloud driven applications today, we all survive on, like what we do it for ordering our food or doing a banking transactions or ordering a taxi and so on and so forth. All these evolving world of applications which have moved from a compute to actually a browser based model or a app based model, this further proliferation of applications are driven by user experience as a key objective for these companies. And in that scenario, the development of those applications is continuously happening to enhance the user experience and user features. This has led to very short development cycles, or in other words, evolving development along with running the real-time production of these applications to service the consumers. So that's why the development and operations basically stands for a day-to-day run of that particular application. So that's why a common word has arrived called as DevOps. Now in the DevOps world, whenever we are introducing such an experience for customers where we are mixing so many application development with the real-time operations, this has a real security issue. Hence, there is another term which has coined which takes care of such securing such DevOps is called as DevSecOps. Also, I have told you that sometimes it also is called as SecDevOps. So whichever way, it's one and the same thing. So that's another opportunity. Now we move to the third level, the tier, which is called the administrators, who are basically super users or the root users for administrating the networking devices, server devices, compute, or applications, or server operating system as separate administrator. All these administrators have the higher privilege access opportunity with respect to the normal user operating over this infrastructure. Hence, when these individuals log in into these devices, it poses a higher level of risk if these are not monitored, recorded, or they are rightly authorized to access the right things. Hence, the new applications for controlling the access or monitoring the access of these administrative level privileges has been into existence called as payment PAM is what we have told. So we have lot of security opportunity for such solutions where we are controlling, monitoring, or assessing the administrators who are device controlling. Fourth thing which we have seen is that since all these devices are deployed, configuration faults can be a big issue for a security fraud to be possibly happening. Hence, auditing these configurations on network devices, on these application devices, servers, etc., is very important attribute of cybersecurity opportunity. Fifth point, we know that these applications have been developed by application developers who might not have taken care of the security holes that get created, because that might be because of the wrong JavaScript written, or the node.js call has not been rightly addressed. It has a possibility of creating some hole for the attacker to penetrate, or the application developers have not taken care of the cookie cleaning and caching which is left over in the browsers, so that the user who has actually been authorized by the system finished his transaction, and some hacker then replay that session to compromise. All those holes exist because of possibility of the applications not written rightly, and that's very common problem for many years which has been into existence. So we need to validate that possibility of those existence of the holes called as penetration testing. Then the underlying operating system can have a issue or a known vulnerability of that application vendor or the operating system vendor, whosoever platform is being used. So the security folks have to actually validate that what are those vulnerabilities which exist in my system. So that's called as vulnerability assessment. And lastly, in this space of business, possibility for the security professionals, also when these systems, they are servicing their customers, whether it's a bank or an e-commerce website or a telecom company or a ticket booking facility, etc., etc., they are at a high risk of being compromised with something called as a distributed denial of service attack, which can lead to they being unavailable for their legitimate users because of the illegitimate traffic which has been thrown on these infrastructure by the hackers. So that DDoS is possibly a big threat to the organizations who put their infrastructure for public facing applications, etc. Hence, we as security professionals have one more opportunity in this space to validate the risk of DDoS by simulating that DDoS for the customer in a peacetime, so that they can enhance their infrastructure capability to understand where they stand, or they enhance their security posture. This is called as a DDoS simulation exercise. All these are being explained as the other set of possibility for our business uh, business capacity, or you can say consulting role. So this is the point number 5 which we discussed. Then the point number 6, we all know that data is a very important asset, be it a data of a company which is taking care of your applications like social security, or be it data which is related to the bank accounts and so on and so forth. So there is a plenty of possibilities of the data which is being held at the data center by these organizations who are into different business industries. So this data is of critical nature, and any leak of data has to be prevented. So that's called as a data leak prevention opportunity which exists. And also, if the data has already leaked without my knowledge, now I need to know whether the breach has happened or not. So this is like a extension of the data leak, which is more of a forensics in nature. So that is what we have to figure out and exist as one more set of opportunity for cybersecurity when we are dealing with application and servers. Then comes the point number 7, which is when these applications, systems, and the other security controls, which now we are going to talk up in the next round of session, all these devices, whatever transactions they are doing currently, they all record logs. Hence, it is very important that these logs are being looked at by somebody. Not only looked at by somebody, they have to be real time analyzed by somebody, and that's called as a real time monitoring systems for system application and security logs of these applications and servers or the compute that we have put in. So that's another set of opportunity which exists. Then, last but not the least, forensics, which means some issue had happened, be it a data loss or an attack or a DDoS or any other form of attack which has happened on my infrastructure. We need to do a forensic analysis of that so that we can understand the root cause of that, and we are in a position to plug such hole that existed in the past, which has led to my current situation. Having said all that, these are the very, very highly looking possibilities of the goals which the cybersecurity professionals have to set when they look at the applications or the servers or the compute in front of them. Please understand, this is not the end of the story for us, but this is the very high level, very, very high level, broad 8 classifications which you guys have to understand that probably exist for us as the cybersecurity professionals, consultants, or who are selling into the industry for this. When a situation is very high level, it means that when I go to a different industry, which is, let's say, banking, maybe all 8 areas are important for them. But when I go to a manufacturing company, may not be all 8 areas are important to them. Secondly, so this is one other thing which will come into play when we are into the market, when we are selling it to them. Then, when we are into very different evolving the business use cases across us, for example, smart city. Also, while Abhijit was responding to my question in the previous occasion, in the beginning of the session, he has also used the word industry 4.0. So all these are newer abstractions or newer ways of doing businesses. In such situations, you might see that you require a, a evolving need from any one of these area to be a focused cybersecurity requirement right now. For example, in the smart city, real-time operating is very, very important feature. May not be very important for them to do a penetration testing or the vulnerability assessment of the IoTs right now, but they would be more interested to start with the real-time monitoring of their IoT applications. So this could be their starting point. So there is no chronology in which this sequence has to follow, depending upon the nature of the business or the state at which you are talking to the customer. So it's very important to realize the context that gets on the top of it about these goals of cybersecurity. So this brings me back to where I wanted to start, that is the cybersecurity foundation components now, the part 3 of our ongoing series of sessions. Maybe we will not be able to have a continuous sprint of 2 hours. So I might break this session into 2 sessions of 1 hour each, and I would let you know, depending upon the pace and piece of this particular solution, which we're going to start now. Also, it is very, very important for me that I give you a couple of minutes to keep a pen and pencil with you so that you can create your notes, because these sessions are not that I'm going to cover the end-to-end depth. You guys have to do your own research subsequent to learning from this session so that you are ready when you are back on 15th April in your jobs. So let's look at, firstly, as I always have been telling you, that at QoS, we firstly need to understand that what is that we are trying to address. Why are we doing what we are supposed to do? That is what needs to be firstly answered. So this is more of a business orientation slide. You need to know what is happening that is driving the cybersecurity objectives for the consultants like us or the companies like us. First of all, we have been seeing for many years now that there has been a consumerization of IT. It was a big desktop, and almost now everybody knows that, yes, with the very smart and enhanced features, all those compute capabilities are now at my handheld devices, whether it's a smartphone or a tab. No doubt that, yes, these devices exist, but also continuity of the laptops and the desktops still is there. However, more proliferation or more and more compute applications will be rendered on these handheld devices, because they are going to become more and more compute interaction interfaces for the users. So consumerization of IT is very big thing which has happened in last few years, that has led to the surface of the data center or the surface of the users no more restricted to within their campus. It has gone beyond their campus, beyond their building, beyond their land, beyond their van, because it is now on the user handheld devices. And every user has a freedom to buy a Android or a Apple phone, and within Android we know there is a huge diversity. Then within these diversities there are variety of operating systems, which means no more the operating system and the handheld devices are in the control of the organizations because of the consumerization of the IT. The social behaviors have changed. Those changing social behaviors have pushed the enterprises and administrations of those infrastructures to see on what interfaces compute is going to be interacting with their compute. Hence, they need to make sure that this surface is well understood. That's one thing. Point number two, now looking at this slide, all these mobile, so the story doesn't end at here. Also, what has happened is that these apps, which are actually for which the compute physically is being used, the hardware which we have seen in the past, on the customer side or on the front end side, it is rendered by virtue of mobile apps or micro apps. We have all been aware about these apps, so I will not talk too much about it. Hence, the proliferation of these business applications on the interface of apps have become a very common business use case. In the previous session, we have also discussed that the server side or the delivery side of applications has been going through the virtualization and the cloud abstractions from many years. And in the cloud abstractions, we have studied three different types of abstractions. One is interface as a service called as EAS, then platform as a service called as PaaS, and also software as a service also called as SaaS. So the world is a mixture of all these three being coexisting in my customer space along with their on-prem infrastructure. So if I look at my current days bank or current days enterprise or a tech company, I will see the existence of all four variants. One, the private data center, which has been there in the many years, and the three different abstractions. So different applications are being delivered using EAS, SaaS, or PaaS as the framework. Fourth is particularly towards the manufacturing side. So fourth point talks about the digital transformation or all this proliferation happening even at the manufacturing belt. And we call it as, or the industry call it as Industry 4.0. So this is not a typo error. Industry is a word which has been coined by Germans in 2011. That is why it is being expressed in a European notation as Industry 4.0. In the Industry 4.0, since 2011 October, in the Hanover conference, when it was announced, it has actually taken a extensive shape in last 2 years. Though the term was coined in 2011, but typically what we have started to see that in 2017 October end is when QoS delivered their first presentation on securing Industry 4.0 to the customers in this part of the world. And since then, QoS has been making leaps of progress in this space of securing Industry 4.0. So we have huge success stories with our customers in the manufacturing space. And we have recently also been given one of the oil refinery company project in this space. So securing the Industry 4.0 is a very, very important initiative. And let me tell you that all the sales guys and the pre-sales guys, somewhere in the beginning of the next week, I am going to host a 3-hour session only on Industry 4.0 because this is one of our flagship proposition to the market. Now, in this, we not only restrict ourselves to the plant security, but we are also building the solutions for smart city security. So we are investing into the resources in the IoT, that is industrial IoT. Double IoT stands for industrial IoT, which means it's a industrial grade IoT. It's not just the medical grade or a traditional IoT devices. So we are talking about the security use cases around the Industry 4.0. Then the fifth thing, which is also very important for us as security consultants, is the rise of open source. So we have seen that the open source adoption in last 10 years have grown. Many organizations are dependent on open source based platforms. Why? Because the cost of ownership for these platforms is much cheaper and much affordable. Therefore, the organizations build their application intelligence on the top of the open source. And as a consequence of this action in the industry for last 10 years, there are variety of open source platforms or the frameworks which have been built, and hence a continuous security proposition on the top of it have to be built. If the application is not an open source, or if the server compute applications are not open source, but they are being delivered by some vendors in specific, then these are called as applications which are commonly available on the shelf. Okay, so COTS is a word which is being used. So definitely there are COTS applications as well that exist in the market, and they will continue to exist. But the open source has given a new challenge because nobody in specifically is driving the notifications of the patches or the vulnerabilities to their respective customers. It is the customer who is using these open source own responsibility to keep track of the vulnerabilities and keep patching those vulnerabilities should they exist in that. Or obviously, yes, there are some different frameworks in the business which are getting built. For example, a beautiful example is Hortonworks. So anybody who is not aware about them can write down and can look at them, what they do. We all might have heard the word called Hadoop. Hadoop is a open source platform for databases and data structure management today. It's a big data platform. In the so it's like a NoSQL, which means it doesn't follow. Though I use the word data structure, it doesn't follow very specific structure. It's an open source, very commonly used, extensively used platform globally. But Hadoop does not have any support. So in case you get stuck, you have to just depend upon the community. However, the Hortonworks is providing a support and also the very specifically articulated use cases on the top of it whether it's creating a platform is concerned or some business applications around that. So which means the very basic platform is open source, but there is another vendor who is providing that in a curated format to the enterprises who would like to buy them. So this is a newer business model, but definitely exists. Unlike for example, other vendors who, let's say Oracle or SAP, who own the database or the applications end to end and sell that to the customers. So customers are in existence who buy both Oracle as well as Microsoft SQL, as well as some of them buying the Hadoop through Hortonworks, or they are buying absolutely or downloading Hadoop and putting up their own teams to manage this. All this, whatever might be the use case scenarios, the open source in the bottom line has created huge opportunities for cybersecurity for us. Then the dependence, many organizations are overtly dependent on social networking. Some are dependent with some applications, and some are absolutely not, and not at all interested in encouraging their employees to be participating in social networking when they are working on the business. So we will have all the customer when we meet them or when we talk to them, who will range between this spectrum of 100% dependence of their business on social networking to absolutely no reason for them to have any encouragement for social networking for their employees. So there is a full set of customers that exist in this entire spectrum. So it's an important element of our exercise of cybersecurity solution stack when we are approaching them. Having said all this, if you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this attributes to a current state of ecosystem where almost everything is connecting to everything else. This is the kind of opportunity which has happened in the past. So this is also a trend which is irreversible in nature. You will not see this happening, reversing itself. So in that scenario, what is the starting point for a cybersecurity consultant? The starting point for cybersecurity consultant is to let me assess this cybersecurity posture. That when all this is happening in my customer space, how do I realize and where do I start in my understanding? This is my way of presenting the cybersecurity posture, which is also called as a risk posture. Now I will explain you. There are many elements in this slide which are of an interest to each one of you. First of all, let's look at it. Why is this like a pentagon of a curve? So you guys have to understand, I'm sure that most of you would have done mathematics until almost 12th standard or even further. All of you would understand that we have been using X and Y axis. And if we have done physics or maths beyond 12th standard, we must have seen three-dimensional physics, three-dimensional graphs, which is X, Y, and Z. Now imagine if there are more than 3 attributes on which one value has to be plotted, which means if I have X, which has to be plotted against Y, Z, alpha, beta, then how do I plot that? You know, in a in a 3-dimensional or a 4-dimensional or a 5-dimensional space, that might be very easy. But imagine now, if I say that all that what have to be done, all these 5 dimensions have to be plotted on a 2-dimensional surface, which is just like a 2-dimensional graph, then it gives a birth to something called as a spider curve, like this in front of you. Now here, what is the attribute that we are watching? We are watching the attribute called risk. Risk is my one single attribute, but my risk can take 5 different possibilities. One, when I look below myself, you know, when I stand on a surface, what is the risk below me. Then another surface, another point of attribute for me in this entire space to look for the same risk is that what is the risk coming from my behind. So now you start visualizing by closing your eyes, if you have to, in a physical space, that when you stand on a surface, imagine, because gravity is there and the air pressure is there, you always realize different things in your realization. One, you are aware about what is that surface on which you are standing, that's called below you. Then you are aware about something is definitely behind you. You know, we are aware about, we are our social or our brain sense lets us realize that yes, something is behind us. Then we also have a sense of lateral, which means left and right. When I open my hands on left and right, we know that something can be there on my left side, something can be there on my right side. So this is how we say look across. Then we also know that when I will open my eyes, and my brain will have a sense of the horizon in front of me, the front, which is called as ahead of me, who is ahead of me. Then our brain also has sense by when I move my head in a direction of just going up vertically, then I will see, there is sky, there is something coming from top, there will be something which can come from top. So all these are the 5 dimensions on which, let's say, I, for any physical object, need to realize the risk of that object being hit either from behind or from the lateral, or it will move very fast and will hit somebody in front, or if it is something coming from the top, or if the surface below it just get ruptured and he falls inside. So all these are the dimensions on which the risk of a physical object has to be validated. So that's how a risk posture on this diagram will get plotted then. Okay, then I will say that I will monitor the risk at the values of 1 to 5. So each element of risk in each of these directions can have a value ranging from 1 to 5. 5 meaning, if I give 5 as a risk, that means it's the highest risk in that direction. Okay, we all know that when we stand on a surface, okay, surface which is, let's say, ground, a physical ground, I will always believe that my risk is just 1. Why I will say my risk is not 0? Because I know that in case the earthquake comes or some elements of the earth structure changes at that very moment on which I'm standing, there is a possibility that this will rupture and I might fall in. The next moment is I will move myself and go on stand on the bridge. Okay, now bridge has been constructed by somebody as a human being. What if this bridge falls? So the likelihood of earthquake coming and then breaking the same surface on which I'm standing is much lower than the bridge on which I'm standing, and there is a water stream flowing below that, that bridge can break or fall. So that likelihood is more. So maybe I will give a risk of 1.5 to that element. Similarly, if I stand on a very frugal surface, you know, let's say I am a painter who is painting, or I am a cleaner who is cleaning a 35th floor and standing on some surface. So my risk of falling, as opposed to falling on the bridge which was having water flowing under it, is higher when I'm standing on such rough or a very temporary surface being created for me to clean floor number 35 from outside. So all this is the way you have to realize that risk. Okay, now coming back to the context in which we are discussing, this was just to explain you this spider curve and the risk, which is you know, the kind of risk, the way I have explained you, that has been depicted on this slide by red color line. Okay, however, you will see also there is one yellow color line. In this yellow color line, what I'm trying to say is that red color is the current level of risk in that space. However, yellow is our desired, which means I am bringing all the risk to just the level of 1, which means whatever is humanly possible to eliminate the risk, we should try to bring that risk to that. Okay, so yellow is a line, or mustard color, whatever you are seeing. Because of the visibility, I'm not sure what you're seeing. So maybe yellow or mustard color line, whatever you are seeing, that line is basically this demonstrating that this is the desired level of risk which my customers want to, or I would like to take my customers to. However, red color line, just as a security practitioner, this is my line. Okay, so this is how I, as Ramandeep Singh, see this line. This does not mean that if you see some consultant from some big four company draws a line differently, giving different scores, it's absolutely okay. But what will you see more or less is that when such consultants like me or somebody else in the industry who have spent almost 2 decades in the cybersecurity, you will see their curves almost similar. Okay, so that's the important message from this slide. It doesn't mean that what I have drawn is perfect. Okay, so now let's start now demystifying this, having explained you all the background and context, and technically demystifying, because I'm not sure some of you might be seeing the spider curve for the first time. So I have explained you what a spider curve looks like, and I've given you an analogy of my standing physical object. You know, that's not related to what I'm going to explain now, but that was just to get a feeling of this curve or this graph. Coming back to now explaining the context of our storyline, we all know that interconnectivity of applications, servers, user compute, whatever it is basically happening by virtue of something called as a TCP/IP stack. Transport Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. That's what TCP/IP we all know stands for. Okay, and we all, if are not aware, then I will solicit you guys to start Google after this session to understand that why I have used the word that TCP/IP stack is very, very weak in its own security capability. It's an amazing protocol stack for interconnectivity. It has actually been very, very powerful for last 35 years, almost little less than 35 years in the industry, and still very successful. However, it does not have any inherent security capabilities. Even if they have, they are very, very basic, which are as good as not existent. This is one big problem, because all these interconnectivity of applications, servers, data center, ERs with SaaS with other SaaS, all these are possible only through TCP/IP interconnecting interface, and that's what is having a problem. Then there is another point, that all these application interconnections, they are basically making disparate system to get connected together. When I say disparate, means unlike systems. For example, you will have a lathe machine in the manufacturing plant connecting to an IoT device, which is further connecting to a cloud. Look, these three different objects, they are inherently not similar. So when such is the case, and this connectivity is, by the way, happening, you know, and why I use this example, because the similar examples are there in across around us. So they're not having a similar framework of usability, similar interface of communication. So in such scenarios, we are bringing a TCP/IP to each one of them, and when we are bringing all this together, this is creating lot of loosely coupled interfaces. So, but without interfaces, we cannot make the interconnectivity of these digitally aspiring physical world to come together. So we are bound to make them work together. We are bound to connect them together. We are bound to bring dilute their boundaries and make them talk to each other. And when this will happen, these loosely coupled interfaces on which the entire application is sitting and a TCP/IP, which is an interconnectivity protocol, they are offering a big risk to us. That's why you are seeing that dot or the vertex of this touching 4 points on the risk surface of 5. Then let us look at the who is standing behind us. Some of you have unmuted. I'm not sure why, or you have just, guys, some of you have just joined. Please mute yourself. Thank you very much. Then who stands behind us? Generally, we see a cyber law or a law stands behind any dispute or any issue that might exist. So we have very, very loosely coupled laws. Many countries do not have, but India is being blessed with quite a couple of few laws which exist, like a IT Act of 2000, and then with the substantiation or amendment in 2008. Then there is some form of privacy act which is getting into the constitution readiness. But if you look, many countries even do not have that. Some even have that, but we all know that the cyber does not have any boundary. So if a breach or an attack happens, it proliferates between multiple countries as a state-sponsored crime. Now, therefore, we lack all that because there is no great cyber diplomacy between the countries. And with now coronavirus coming as a larger global issue, you would see that the cyber diplomacy will get further pushed to another at least 3 to 5 years from now, because people will be discussing more, in the next few years to bring this, breakdown from happening again. So you would see that the cyber level diplomacy will further get pushed behind by a few more years. But the risk which is realized, if we do a 10 investigations on the cyber security, we hardly see one of them being a issue which would require cyber diplomacy, or which would require a cyber law to be in place. We are missing on the other areas right now, much more number of times than the cyber diplomacy becoming a challenge. Therefore, you would see that the risk has been skewed down to just 3 or little less than 3. Then if we look across is left and right of us. And in the data center based applications, or in the cloud based applications, or in the other abstraction of applications, you will see that the application will always have a very important element, and that's a human being. Now, whether that human being is a consumer of that application, or is an administrator of that application, or is an administrator of an operating system over which this application has been hosted, or is an administrator of a network device which is letting this application to flow across that network device, no matter what is the role, each one of these human beings are potency of a weakest link. So we have a big issue here. They will click somewhere here or there. Even if they are administrators, they may have lack of skills. So that's why you are seeing that very interesting definition written: security without security engineers. They are administrating, but they may not be very, very great in their own capability of what exactly a security engineer means. They might be implementing firewalls, they might be implementing IPS and letting the default policy to exist. Tick, 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 they click next, next, next. They may solve only the connectivity problems or the very basic security problems. I am sure some of us also do the same thing and will not realize importance of how to configure or fine tune or even OS harden. I'm not sure that how many of us harden our own operating system. How many of us open a unvalidated file in a sandbox? I'm not sure how many of us are doing it. So any which way. So weakest link in the entire chain are the users, and 8 out of last 10 breaches have been attributed to the users as a first instance of the problem. So you would see that risk is almost as good as 4.8 on the scale of 5. Why I have given 4.8 and not 5 is because definitely there are some set of organizations, some set of administrators who are very, very sure about their actions. And one wonderful example in QoS is your director of professional services, Mr. Varun Arora. So you can learn from him how to keep the user interactions by being the best security engineer also to your capability. So therefore we'll have to keep the room for these kind of people who are definitely keeping very, very hygiene. So on a very lighter note, I gave you his name just so that you can understand, and whenever you get a chance to talk to him, just talk to him. So you will get to see that, okay, how to keep yourself both on internet as a user and as the administrator secure. Anyways, so coming back to the point number 4, which is looking ahead. Who is ahead of us? Ahead of us are hackers, because they collaborate fast. They have a first move advantage because they plan attack. They collaborate, they plan attack on the organization, so they all know that what they are doing. But we on the other side, which we are responders, it will take us some time to connect those dots and arrive at a communication between amongst different teams within our organizations that yes, there is some attack we all are facing. So this is all gives them an advantage, and the risk because of the hackers, these capabilities and their characteristics plus their early move advantage, they will have to be that there's a asymmetry which exists by default. Okay, so they have to be just successful first time or one time. That's a rather right word, sorry, not first, one time. We have to be successful all 100 times. So this is an asymmetry which exists. And also they have a, on the top of this asymmetry, they have an advantage of the first mover capability, because they are planning something without our knowledge that somebody is planning an attack on us. So with this asymmetry, technical advantage, and their characteristics of collaborating fast to do an attack, as opposed to our teams, because our teams will have network team separate, server team separate, virtualization team another one, and then the applications team the fourth one. So all they will be further having their own bureaucratic boundaries, which will help them to delay further, their collaboration. I'm using these words because you need to be aware, and this is very, very common. Let me tell you, for last 25 years, this has been common. At least for 22 years, I am seeing this very, very common thing, and it has not changed. So this goes against the desired characteristics, and hence the score, because of hackers being ahead of us, is this 4.5. Now comes the last, which is looking above. When we look from above, we have to understand that somebody in my company or somebody in the technology space will create some technology which I will be forced to accept in my organization, because that's the way it works in the world. And when that guy or that company have been creating that interface or device or IoT or any other such digital footprint, they did not take my approval to create that or not. So they just created it, and my company, my CEO, my business team, they started liking it, or they are not doing it, but competition of my company has started adapting it. So we are forced to adapt. So when we look above, something will come on the top of me and I will not be aware about that. So we have to take care of this. Hence, this risk exists to a very greater extent. We were with one of the customers and they said that their CFO, that is a chief financial officer, have already bought some 500 IoT devices which require access to the cloud, because this IoT application intelligence is sitting in the cloud. Okay, where is this cloud hosted? This is hosted in IIT Chennai. But why? Why did this happen? Now, the entire IT team was not aware when the CFO has actually accepted this proposal from somebody who came from the IIT incubation and did an amazing business use case. What was the business use case? We all know that in the warehouse, there are trucks which are used, those which have all those moving pulleys and those tentacles, which keep on picking up and moving the different cartons or different equipment from one place to another. So these trucks, which are battery operated, because in a plant you are not allowed to run a fuel based truck, these all battery operated trucks, they require to have a battery which will be charged. So these truck batteries take approximately 8 hours to get fully charged, and each battery costs 2 lakh rupees, and each battery supports only 4,000 power charging cycles. So what these guys were being told by the plant guys or the warehouse manager, that these truckers, they take the truck with a 70%, 60%, 50% charged battery. We all know that. We do the same with our mobile, correct? Sometimes it's not fully charged. So it actually, if we do that, it loses one charging cycle, and every battery has a charging cycles. So which means a charging cycle has been lost. So CFO was being given a use case by these guys that the truck power, if not 100% charged, will not let the truck to start. So some kind of an interesting IoT use case it will allow. Plus it will help finding out those culprits who are doing this. So they have a pattern. So they created that application, and CFO got very excited because it was directly for him translation of money saving. Hence, he just allowed this application. Now those vendors were sitting in the data center or a plant with this IoT application and these 500 IoT devices, but the now IT team has to give them internet access, because that's how it will start. And the internet access was blocked because in the plant you were not able to allow that until unless the right security posture is being taken. So this is what exactly happens. Now in this case, the IT team was very powerful. They were able to stop this from happening. But we keep on hearing, last week only we got a call from one of our customers who said that, oh, we are really facing some challenge in our network connectivity. I don't know what these IoT guys have done. So they are asking us to do an audit. So this is how exactly, when I say, something from the above will fall without the knowledge or with our knowledge, but we are forced to take it because my competition is taking it. And if I don't take it, I will be behind, reaching to my customers. So we will be forced to take all this. So this risk is a very, very important risk element which is happening and is giving birth to security issues now. So this 5 interface or a 5 vertices graph is very important for us to understand why we need security. Now I am open to taking 1 or 2 questions if you guys, because this is very, very important for you to understand. We at QoS firstly explain you the why part so that you know why a customer wants to buy. If you do not know why your customer wants to buy or why he has invested into that technology, then as a sales guys or a pre-sales guys, you are misled. So this is very, very, very important thing for sales and pre-sales guys to know why out of these 5 reasons or a compounding of multiple reasons of these out of 5, the customer is buying. That's one. Second is, If you have gone and trying to educate your customer, then you have to use such kind of a framework to make them understand, because they will be using simple linear equation to understand their problem, which is not correct. It's no more X and Y. It is 5 attributes. And asking right questions around this will help you structuring the need for your customer, which he might or they might not be aware about. Now, coming to the technical folks, many of you just go for implementation, let me tell you, my friends, and you just click next, 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 most of the times. And I am not questioning the ones who are not doing this way. But you all know who are doing this, that I am challenging them. Be aware that we need to take care about the security, because we are a cyber security company. Okay? So this is a very, very important why message for all of you who are in any role. Okay? Any questions now? I am open to taking questions on these, whatever we have discussed so far. No questions? Okay.
Hello, sir. Devin here.
Yeah, Devin.
Sir, the third attribute, that is look across, where it's written that users are weakest link. So does that mean that human capital is not trained enough?
Human capital is definitely trained and not trained enough. It's a very, very subjective, you know, very subjective call. But for sure, we have all the human capital issue. There are people who are trained. Now, let me tell you, I will ask you a very simple question. You may not be clicking any mails or any WhatsApp messages when it sends you, okay, you have won $500,000. You will not click them, correct?
Yes, sir.
Hmm?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. But if I send you a message which will have a link that, okay, see, this is what is happening in COVID-19. There is a new vaccine which has come. I believe that this researcher in India has done a great job. Will you click? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
That's what is the challenge. So I would have educated you not to click that, okay, $8,000 is not something which you will ever get from internet, man. But COVID is very personal to you, because you are seeing that risk that can hamper anybody of us. So you are
Right, sir.
potentially more vulnerable right now to click that. And that's why you will see there are many, many applications which are going to use this as an opportunity to thrive in, because we are all sentimentally low right now on this subject. We are not applying our
Yes.
mind as powerful as 5,000 users. Understand? So
Yes,
this
sir.
is what is a issue. Okay. Secondly, even if you educate somebody, it is always something new which will come. That's another important thing. So this is a continuous effort. Lastly, that the technology adoption in the customers is so extensive these days that whenever an engineer goes and tries to implement something, until and unless he or she is consciously aware that their job is to do a cyber security, there is a high likelihood that their applied skills on a product X might be great, but their applied skills on product B might not be that great. So they will just not be very, very, very extensively researching or doing work on the product B. And this is very, very common problem. Most of us on this session are aware about that, and they know that why I use that name which I used, because we all are supposed to, no matter, yes, as a human being, as an administrator, as a technology consultant, I will definitely be very efficient on one technology at one time. But if I am being challenged to do the same thing on the second technology, I might not be great, but I'll have to apply my own learning curves, the paths, and I will not get satisfied by just making it work. I will have to look at whether it is really the job of a security I have delivered or not. I am supposed to do that as a function. Devan, did I answer you?
Yes, sir. Good. Thank you.
Okay, good. One more question I can take.
Hello, sir. I'm Ekam. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello.
Ekam. Go ahead. Go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. My question is how a company or organization secure their app. For example, if there is two keyboard companies, Android keyboard apps, and one company try to fetch the data of other company with the mobile with the help of mobile hackers. So, sir, how we can secure the data or yes, sir.
Okay, so as far as the architecture of security is concerned, that's going to come now immediately from the next slides. So you'll have to bear for answering this until the end of the session. I will answer that because until you understand architecture, most
Okay,
of
sir.
you who are freshers may not be able to understand even if I answer it right now. So do remind me once we are at the end of the session that how do the architecturally somebody protects. But if you have to correlate it with, so far I have given you the answers. So you will have to see where the database is. So first lockdown you have to do is securing the database. Okay. Second, you will have to see that how much of that database is going to go out, even if the application user is going to access it. Okay. For
Okay.
example, I am a oil company and or a gas company in this country who is giving a LPG cylinders to my consumers. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, while giving that, I will go and access the Aadhaar card data, correct? So when I'm accessing a Aadhaar card data, do I really need to know your PAN number? I may not be knowing the PAN number. I only need to know your name, your date of birth, and the address. That's it. But if Aadhaar starts giving me all the attributes it is recording in their data structure, okay, then it is a problem because I as a oil company do not need them. So there is something called as a data masking. So all those solutions start building around the data first. Okay, that what is the characteristic of a data and what is the compulsion of how much data I have to give it to my customers. That's the first architectural security which you will want. Apart from that, a very typical security controls for applications network that we are going to learn in this next session are going to come. So it's a holistic approach somebody has to put in. And if the company is really can afford, and also the company is looking to be big time and they don't want to become a compromise of somebody's hack, then they will definitely hire somebody like QoS technology to even do a application validation testing
Okay.
or a assessment or a vulnerability assessment or a penetration testing at the app level. So QoS Purple team is, for example, capable to do a iOS or a Android application testing also. Okay, so it's not that I'm selling QoS here, but this is what generally these are the different things which will happen. You know, as a total stuff. And since sales and pre-sales guys of QoS are there on this session, so I'm just telling them these opportunities also exist. Okay, for them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So guys, thank you very much for asking this question and be there on the session. We are taking a 15 minutes break. We'll start at 12.